All right, today we're going to get really personal. We're diving into some old love letters to uncover a story of romance, duty, and devotion, all happening right here in 19th century Maryland.
I mean, really think about it for a second. How did people even say I love you before texts, DMs, or, even the telephone? Imagine having to put all of your feelings into a letter. The written word had to carry the entire weight of your affection. So, how did that actually change the way people talked about their deepest feeling?
Well, turns out in 19th century America, love was literally written down. And what's so fascinating is that over just one generation, the entire language of love changed. We're going to see this happen right before our eyes by looking at the private letters of two very different couples. Their stories, they really show us a pretty big shift in the American heart.
Okay, so here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll explore love as a kind of duty and devotion. Then we'll jump to a romance right on the eve of war. After that, we'll uncover a general's final secret, see a really incredible promise that was kept, and then wrap it all up by looking at what this tells us about the evolving American heart.
All right, so let's start with a guy you've definitely heard of, Francis Scott Key. Yeah, the man who wrote the national anthem, but we're not talking about that today. We're looking at his letters to his wife Mary, which show us a totally different side of him and really the whole era he lived in.
So to really get what's going on in his letters, you have to understand what marriage was like in the early 1800s. It wasn't really seen as this big, passionate, romantic affair. It was more like a partnership of moral purpose. Think of it as a cornerstone of society, grounded in things like duty, religious conviction, and the quiet comfort of home. And that context is absolutely crucial for what we're about to read.
So, in March of 1805, he writes this to his wife. I feel the want of your society more than I can well express. My heart turns from the bustle of business to the quiet of our home. See what he's doing there? He's not writing some flowery, poetic love letter. His affection is all about longing for the quiet and stability of home, something he completely connects with her.
And get this, almost a decade later, in 1814, in the middle of a war, his tone is basically the same. He says, separated as I am from you and our dear children, I find my greatest comfort in the hope that God will preserve us to each other. Again, love isn't this passionate declaration. It's expressed through prayer, through a shared hope that God will keep them safe. That's where he finds his comfort.
And even later, in 1828, he writes, You are ever present to my thoughts, and in every difficulty I seek the comfort which the recollection of your affection affords. Now, I know to us today that might sound a little formal, right? But what he's really saying is that he's completely dependent on her emotionally. Her affection is his anchor, his comfort whenever things get tough. That's a deep bond.
So, what's the big takeaway here? For Key's generation, love wasn't really something you shouted from the rooftops. It was more like an action. It was a commitment, a steadying force in your life, and it was all expressed through the language of faith, stability, and this quiet, shared responsibility. But that idea was about to get a major rewrite.
Okay, let's fast forward a few decades. We're on the brink of the Civil War now, and we find a love story that is completely different. This one is passionate, it's intensely personal, and it was kept almost entirely secret. This is the story of General John Reynolds and Kate Hewitt. And their romance was a total whirlwind. You have this career soldier, a confirmed bachelor, Major John Reynolds. He meets a young orphan named Kate Hewitt on a steamship in 1860. By the next year, they're secretly engaged. Just the fact that it was a secret, that's a massive shift from the very public, community-oriented marriage of Francis Scott Key's time. And Kate, wow, she was a remarkable person. She was an orphan, had a really difficult past, but she was determined to find what she called a rebirth. In a letter, she defends herself, saying, However unfortunate I may be in my position in society, the purpose of my life and the impulses of my heart may be no less generous and noble. You can just feel her resilience, right? She was a woman of real substance, fighting to write her own story.
So you have this incredibly passionate, secret romance happening while the entire nation is just tearing itself apart, and at the war's most famous battle, Gettysburg, their very private story is about to take a tragic and very mysterious turn.
Okay, so it's July 1st, 1863. The Battle of Gettysburg. Major General John Reynolds. He's one of the Union's best and most respected commanders, a hero. But in the opening shots of the battle, his luck just runs out.
And this is where the mystery begins. When his men recover his body, they find things that just don't add up. There's a gold ring on his finger, engraved Dear Kate. He's wearing Catholic medals around his neck, but everyone knew him as a Presbyterian. His West Point ring is gone, and in his bag they find letters signed simply Kate. Suddenly, his death isn't just a tragic loss for the Army. It's the start of a deep, personal puzzle.
And the answers to that puzzle? Well, they came when Dear Kate herself showed up. Kate Hewitt. She revealed not only the secret of their love, but also this extraordinary promise that had defined their entire relationship.
So Kate appears at the Reynolds family home, and you can imagine. It's a total shock, a thunderclap. She tells them about their secret engagement, and then she reveals this solemn vow they made to each other. If John died in the war, she would enter a convent. And true to her word, she does it. She joins the Daughters of Charity in Emmitsburg, Maryland. Think about that. She traded her entire future for a promise made in love. It's such an intensely personal, private act of devotion.
Now, her story doesn't actually end there. She did eventually leave the order, and for more than 150 years, what happened to Kate next was a total historical mystery. But believe it or not, recent research has finally pieced together the rest of her life, and it shows a story of incredible perseverance, a real testament to that strength we saw in her letters from the very beginning. Okay, so let's put these two Maryland romances side by side. You have the dutiful, steady partnership of the Keys, and then you have the passionate, secret vow of Reynolds and Hewitt. What does comparing them actually tell us about how the idea of love was changing?
I mean, the contrast is pretty stark when you lay it out. For Francis Scott Key and his wife, love was based on duty, faith, and stability. It was a very public partnership. And the expression of that love, it was in those measured letters about home. Then you look at General Reynolds and Kate Hewitt. Their love was based on passion and these private vows. It was a secret engagement expressed through hidden tokens and that incredible solemn promise.
And here it is, the crucial point. The American idea of romance literally shifted from being this public partnership based on principle to a private, passionate, and deeply personal commitment in just one generation. This wasn't happening in a vacuum, of course. It was part of a bigger cultural change with new ideas about individualism. And you have to think, the incredible life-or-death stakes of the Civil War probably just hit the fast-forward button on all of it. So that really leaves us with something to think about, right? In our own world, a world of public social media profiles and private DMs, what do these stories from the past reveal about how we value love, duty, and privacy today? It's just a fascinating glimpse into the history of the human heart.